And that's my message to you that we are recording. So everyone should be muted. I don't know why you're unmuted, but if you can stay muted throughout the conversation, please. Yeah, I usually have everyone muted when they come in. Whether you want your camera on and off, it's up to you, but we are recording. There will be time at the end for Q&A, so you will be able to come off mute and ask your questions directly to Heather as well, too. But just so you know right now that we are recording and yeah, and we'll get started very quickly here. So I think everyone's in. Oh, here's another one. I'll keep checking that so you don't have to worry about that. Heather, I will just make you co-host. I haven't had any issues with Zoom, but you never know in case
Yep.
anything happens. Then just if I disappear, just keep talking.
Okay.
Because there'll be no break in it. I'll just be gone, but you can just keep
Okay.
talking whatever you're talking about, and then I'll be right back.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
you will be host once I'm gone. But I haven't had any problems, so fingers crossed. All right.
Uh-huh.
So welcome everyone tonight to let me do this as well too. Spotlight for the recording and spotlight. Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's book talk. So this is part of our Research into Practice initiative with Defending the Early Years. And it's kind of me being selfish and realizing I didn't read a lot of books last year and I want to read more books. So you know how you like for me, when I was teaching in university, if I wanted to read a book, I put it on my syllabus and I'm not teaching in a university, which is another reason why I'm not reading as many books as I used to.
That's such
So
a good
I
idea.
yeah, so I decided let's host some book talks and let's get some books read. And that was the kind of brainchild for this activity. So we're doing it monthly, and this was supposed to be in March, but it's in April, so we're doing another one next week, which I'll share about later. But yes, I was so excited
Uh-huh.
because I know Heather, Heather Bernt-Santy, who is the host of
Oh, they're
that the
starting.
podcast that Early Childhood Nerd, and sorry, yeah, and national advisor to defending the
Yeah.
early years. And I knew her book was coming out, using schema play to advocate for free play in early childhood. I memorize these titles as many times as I write and say those titles. I am proud that I have memorized it by now.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but it,
No, it
it
does
says what
actually.
it
It's
is.
just I just have to practice it because there's so many of them. Like today, I was copying
Yeah.
the one for next month, and I'm like, by June, I'm gonna have that, or by May, I'm gonna have it down. So her book, and when did it come out again? Remind me. It just read this year, right?
November. It was
November.
November,
Okay.
late
And I don't know
November.
if you saw, I was at the conference in the ARA, the American Education Research Association conference in um, San Francisco. No, where were we at? Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
And I saw your book. I took a picture when there was the TCP had a book area, and I saw your book, and I took a photo of it, and I put it
Ah,
with all my photos that I put up for the day. I
how did
think
I miss it?
yeah, your book was there, and next month's book, which I don't have with me when I go to plug it. I'm so mad it's in my
Mm.
room because I'm reading it. That book as well was there as well too. And then I was like, Keitha, I didn't see your book with TCP. She's like, because I published with Red Leaf. I was like, oh, sorry, Red Leaf wasn't there. They didn't have a table,
Mhm.
so we couldn't find it. But yours was there at the conference, and so that was good to see it. All right, so the way we're going to work is I have about a handful of questions for Heather, and so we'll go through those and we'll have a conversation. And you are welcome to do Q&A. So a couple things you can use the chat. I believe it's turned on. You can use a chat. You can drop a question in there, and I'll share it later. Or at the time of the Q&A, I will just say, "Does anyone have a question?" And you can raise your hand and come off mute and ask your question directly, or I will ask it if you put it in the chat. So yeah, will have time for that towards the end. Lots of people here to discuss this great book. All right, so welcome again, everyone. If you just joined us, we're just getting started. We are recording. Please stay muted, and there will be time for Q&A at the end. So, Heather, my first question for you is your brilliant book is about schema play theory. Can you share how you first became familiar with schema play theory and provide a definition for the audience?
Yes. Well, I first became aware of it because Tiffany Pearsall, who is a brilliant friend of mine, of
Yes,
ours,
yes.
many years before I started even thinking about a book or about this book, sent me like a one-page chart of schemas. Like here are the schemas, and here's what kids might do, and here's the things you want to have in your room so they can do those things. And I ignored it because I thought, oh, here we go again with another buzzword um, that's going to come and go. And I just sort of forgot about it. And then when I had to pick a topic for my master's thesis, I knew I wanted it to be something about play. And I remembered that she had sent me that, and I went back and found it, and that's kind of where it clicked for me was when I paid attention to it instead of just poo-pooing poor Tiffany's really good sharing. But so
Yeah.
it's connected to, I mean, of course, when we think about schema in early childhood or childhood, our brains go probably right to Jean Piaget, and that's a piece of it, but what I'm specifically talking about in this book is the work that sort of comes from a woman named Chris Athey, who was a researcher and lecturer in the UK. She ran a project called the Froebel Early Childhood Project, Early Education Project, for about a 5 year
It's
span
going.
in the mid 70s.
I got it. Go ahead.
And her goal was to observe children 2 to 6 years old playing and try to see what we can learn about how they think by watching them play. And in that process, over those 4 or 5 years, she started to see repeated patterns in the children's play.
Mhm.
She discovered, I think, 40 or more. She wrote about more than 40. We tend to
Wow.
break we tend to kind of put them into a list of either 8 or 10, depending on whether you um, do like enclosure and enveloping as one or as two separate
Hmm.
schemas. But so it's things like transforming, trajectory, transporting, rotation and circularity. Here's the test if I'm going to get all 8. Enclosing and enveloping, connecting and disconnecting, positioning and ordering, and orientation and perspective. And essentially, those are just descriptors of kind of the actions the children are taking in their play and in their exploration of their environment that we could kind of see repeated across groups of children and across ages.
Yeah, I love that. And there was a question where I wanted you to name them later, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
You can talk more about them later. No, that's really fine.
Okay, yeah.
I will share. I mean, I don't remember, it's so funny because like I don't remember being explicitly taught about schemas, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I remember there was a document I had. It was like a 10-page PDF and it was really simple and it just listed these
Mhm.
schemas. So I was teaching at Sarah Lawrence and I had my students, they had a field experience at the center at the school there and I wanted them to write play stories and they were really struggling on what to write. And I was like, what? You can't just write about kids playing? Like to me, it's just a
Yeah.
natural thing to do. And they were like, no, what are we supposed to focus on? So I found that document and I gave it to them and they loved it. All of a
Yeah.
sudden they were talking about schemas and it was great. And I was just like, okay, I
Yeah.
don't need anything to write about children's play.
Yeah.
I just write. But it really helped the students. So
Yeah.
that's why I was really excited for this book because I know that it can help young people, like young pre-service teachers who they're observing, but they need to hone those observation skills sometime, or they can describe, but they don't have a way of like thinking about the play other than this is what the kid did. But
Mhm.
once they had that like roadmap to say, oh, and then they were comparing how different kids did the same schema differently, right? Like
Yeah.
they were able to really get into it. So
I
yeah,
love that.
it's definitely a good tool, I think,
Yeah, I
for
get more kind of aha facial reactions and actual oh kind of reactions talking to people, parents and people who are working with young children, um, talking about schema than any other topic I talk about. Like it
yeah.
clicks immediately. They can automatically think, oh yeah, I've seen children do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then it feels purposeful, right? Like it's
mhm.
like, oh, they're not because I get that people think the play is just not purposeful, right? They think, and I don't believe like all play has a purpose, right? Even
Right.
like I will say a child standing there screaming to the top of their lungs. I don't know, something in their body is telling them to
Yeah.
do that, their brain,
Yeah.
their heart, something. I don't know what it is, but like there's a purpose behind it. It's a form of communication. It's something, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so I think people need this understand it and they don't have a framework for really understanding it. And what I love about the stories you give us in the book is that you point out where that behavior could be misinterpreted. And if it's
Yeah.
misinterpreted and the teacher's seeing it as like so what was it, the girl who was collecting all the crackers in her basket and
Yeah.
she wasn't eating them, but like that's wasteful to some teachers. Um, I can hear Heather well, but that's it. Anyone else? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I don't know. I moved the fan away in case that's it. But yeah, let me know. Okay, I got a
Yeah.
thumbs up. Sorry about that. Thanks. Um,
Yeah, where we could have thought she was being selfish or wasteful because it was like a
yeah.
family style service
Hmm.
of crackers for snack, and she was taking more even though she hadn't eaten any. And that was a moment where I was like, this could be, she's just really into transporting them with that spoon
Yeah, just
with the
moving them.
basket
And
in
so
her
then you have
plate.
to worry about that because with food, right, you touch it and you put it on your plate, it
Yeah.
doesn't usually go back to the family, right? So then you're like, so there's
Yeah.
that tension between, oh, she's being wasteful, but no, she's actually engaged
Mhm.
in this schema and
Mhm.
it's about the movement of it from another place. And so yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so you argue, and it's in the title of the book, right, that we can use schema play to, or theory to advocate for play, which is what we all want. So those of us who are play advocates, I count myself in that. I know you are. I
Yeah.
hope all 39 of you in the audience are also play advocates, but I understand some of you might be, I always think about it as a continuum
Yeah.
where on the one far left side, you're like, yeah, play is a break from learning and, it's fine. And on the far right hand side, you're like, I wish that all I could do is sit back and let them play all day. Like,
Mhm.
where do you fall on the continuum, teachers?
Yep.
But hopefully you're closer, you're a believer in play. And so it is about advocacy. So how does knowing, recognizing, and supporting schema play theory advocate for free play?
Well, I think you really touched on it when you were talking about I'm sorry, I was reading a chat that popped up and
No,
now
no,
I
go. I
forgot what
know.
I was
Sorry.
going to
I
say.
asked people to
No,
introduce themselves in the chat. I hope that's not distracting you,
no,
but
it's not, but I did just derail myself with that. But oh, it's what you were saying earlier about how it helped, introducing the idea of play schemas to your students helped really sort of center them and bring them into feeling like there was something they could look for. Because I think that's part of it too, is like if I'm observing children, there's so much. What do I write? What do I ignore? What do I do with it then? And I think that there are also some folks who, when you talk about the value of play and how it can benefit children, how it does benefit children, and how I want to talk to other people about that to persuade them to be more comfortable with play or to talk more, that's what advocacy is, right? Is persuading someone who maybe feels skeptical about free play. And uh, what I like about the schema play kind of framework is I don't have to know every element of development. Ooh, that was sort of rhymy. To to be able to notice that something's important, and I can wonder about it later. Like in the moment, I don't need to know either. But if
hmm
I'm looking and I notice something that is a transporting action schema, whatever you want to say,
hmm
that focuses me and I can write that story or record that story somehow. And then I can say, okay, well, what benefit do I think they're getting here? They could be getting. I think it's a little bit ambitious to think we can ever really know what a child is learning or how
hmm
they're benefiting, but I can wonder about it. And then I can pick out the pieces that I think would convince that person I'm trying to talk to, if that makes sense. Like I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
helps to sum up kind of, it helps to focus what you're looking at or and help you choose which story to tell.
hmm
And then you look at it and you say, okay, so when she is using that spoon to just move crackers from a basket to her plate and back and forth, and I think about all those kind of developmental areas, which one do I think this is giving her some benefit in?
hmm
And then how do I tell that story? Um, to show that it might have looked meaningless, but it really had a lot of meaning for her to do that simple action over and
Yeah.
over. So, and I think attaching the word theory doesn't hurt.
Nope.
To say schema play theory, I think that gives it a little bit of credibility. So if the person I'm talking to needs that, I can tack that on.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's important, right? Because we advocate for things we believe in, and I
Mhm.
think I don't know, I guess some people it took me I always like believed in play was important, but it's only been recently that I really, really see it as like key to a lot of what I think needs to happen more in early
Yeah.
childhood education and care spaces. So once, so it might help you, like you said, focus so that you can develop that belief and that
Mhm.
ability to see it clearly what it is and how it's working. And that's important for the advocacy, right? Because you're not going to advocate for something that you're kind of just like blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can use that theory language to defend it. Oh, your kids spend too much time playing. Well, I mean, the way I really love the way each section you talk about that child's particular development, right? Development and academics that,
Mhm.
what kind of science and math and literacy in the appropriate early childhood
Yes.
language, right? Like people will be like, what are you talking about? That's not pre-literacy. I think in one of them you were talking about visual attention, and it
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
pre-literacy.
Yeah.
And what was there another one? I forgot. Oh, I think it was the one to transporting when he was carrying the balls, right?
Yeah.
Or one of them you talked about how that leads to printing awareness later down the
Spatial
line, right?
relationships. Like, so
Spatial
he
relationships.
was,
Yes.
and the kids in the book all have pseudonyms. I sometimes
Okay.
forget that and use their real names when I'm really talking. But so that's Teddy, and he had a big, like the kind of big net bag you would carry gym
Yeah.
balls, basketball kinds of things in. He had that full of kickballs slung over his shoulder, and he was trying to take it up the slide, up the steps and up the slide and through the tunnel that's up in the
Hmm.
climbing structure. And he did have to figure out what fits and what doesn't. And if something is too big, what do I do about it? Like if the bag is too big for me to fit through, what do I have to do about it? And that's him experiencing in a really concrete way spatial relationships and boundaries and borders. And that can contribute down the road. I mean, those are the same
Yeah.
skills he's going to need to
Yep.
keep his name in the space that's given on
Yeah.
his school paper or to keep between the lines on the little handwriting papers that
Yeah.
we give them.
And we know that, like, typically boys tend to start out writing gigantically,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And they
Hmm.
need to practice getting that spatial thing because
Yeah.
their handwriting's all over the place, right? And some girls
Yeah.
too sometimes, but I think they have more practice with that kind of spatial awareness that keeps them within the lines a little bit
Yeah.
more. So, yeah, anything that can help. But I think a lot of times we don't think about early child development in terms of academic areas, the precursors, right? The
Yeah.
precursors to math, the precursors to science, to
And we
literacy, right?
should.
And we should be thinking about all those things because it's not sit down and let me read this book to you. It's not let me drill you with questions. It
Mhm.
is the things you do in play that are kind of building those skills, right?
Yeah.
Like writing skills are built through gross and fine motor skills, but also just tracking something with your eyes because we
Yeah.
have to track words, right, when we read. And so yeah, I thought that was really a great. And again, all of that is part of the advocacy because you use that language about development, about literacy, and about skills, and then people have to be like, "Oh, she knows what she's talking about. I
Yeah,
guess I gotta."
I hope so.
Yes, she does.
There were moments when I would be writing and I'd think, am I pushing this too far? Is this really a
No, I
connection?
thought it
And
was
I would
really,
text
that's why I called
somebody.
it brilliant because I haven't really seen someone really do that. And I think a lot of it is intuitive. Like, yes, I know that play supports all areas of academic, but specifically thinking about certain things that you don't like. A lot of the science things, I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that,
Yeah,
right? Okay. Yes,
yeah.
that is like sometimes it's just the orientation, just the act of what they're doing contributes to later down science skills. And like you said, we cannot I know people don't want to believe this, but we can't ever know what's going on in anyone's mind. I used to
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this was my biggest problem in law school, especially criminal justice class. I'm like, well, you can never know why someone did something. So this whole thing, it's just built on the house of cards. My crim professor was like, don't start. Because I've had this argument with him where it's
Yes.
like, it is not possible to know for sure why someone did something. You can pretty much figure out that they actually did it based on all
Yeah,
the clues, but the why how will we know? They
yeah,
might not even know. And we built a
yeah.
whole system that punishes you based on the why. And so, yeah, right. And I feel the same way with young children. Like, and we feel because we don't know, we want to know, or we will say, well, that can't be contributing to learning, but how do we know? And it's
Mhm.
better to believe that all the things they're doing are contributing to their learning than to
Yeah.
think that some of them are not doing it because I'm not leading the activity, right? I'm not
Right.
the one
Yeah.
telling them what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at some point in the book, you discuss how resistance to play is based on a lack of trust of children. What are some other reasons
Yeah.
why you think people dismiss free play, and how do you suggest we utilize schema play theory to kind of push back against their reluctance? You outline a few in the book, so I don't know if you wanted to
Okay.
share a few with
Yeah,
people
you might have to remind me
without
of the
giving it
parts
all
of the
away.
question.
Yes, yes.
Um, so, I mean, I think that. play is just so universal that it's hard to think that it's special or that
Mm,
it could be intentional when it's just something a child is choosing to do. And so that's a piece of the trust. And I don't mean that as a criticism of people. I think that's
mm-hmm,
a really just a natural way to think about um, what what children do. They play. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
how could it be special when in fact that's why it's special because it's this drive that we see them doing against all odds sometimes and
Right?
working so hard to get their play that I think that's an argument for it being actually really complex and important to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
child. But I think too, I read an article a long time ago, and I probably cite it in the book, probably in this section, and I can't remember anything about it. But if anyone needs it, email me. But it was a group that had done sort of a short-term research uh, into teachers who get like really strong pre-teaching training in developmentally
Mm,
appropriate
mm-hmm,
practice. But
mm-hmm.
then when they actually get into a classroom, what they would see was them reverting to their own elementary school memories
Yep.
instead of that solid kind of training or education they had beforehand, because that
Mm-hmm.
just really has a hold on us.
Yeah.
That vision of learning happened when I was in a desk and the teacher told me what to do, and the teacher stood at the front of the room and did all of the important work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's hard to break out of that, and play is not, play is the opposite of that. So I
Yeah,
think there's
yeah.
always also just this idea that um, I'm the adult with all the knowledge, so I have to be in charge for there to be any learning.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and we still have important roles to play. It just looks a lot different than those elementary school memories.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
if I'm honest, I think there are just some folks who need that to have that teacher ego that I'm the one. I
Yeah,
should be in
yeah.
charge. And or well, it's just chaos if we play all day.
Mm,
Like I
mm-hmm.
think there's a lot of reasons, a lot of things
Yeah,
adults have
yep.
to kind of wander through to figure out their play identity and play comfort level.
Hmm. Yeah, we call them edges, things that make you uncomfortable about children's play, like they push up on your edges. And so you have to
Yeah.
recognize those because you're
Yeah.
not likely to advocate for play when
Hmm.
that happens. And yeah, I think, and you talk a lot about the need to have like to feel like be taken seriously as a real teacher. And
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that people said that to you, but when you said someone was like, God, you're so good at this. Have you ever thought about becoming a real teacher? It's
Yeah.
like, what
I
do
was
you
working
think
with
I'm doing over
two-year-olds at the
here?
time. Yeah. Yeah. And they absolutely meant it as a compliment, when they
Yes,
said that,
exactly.
but
Yeah, yeah,
they,
yeah.
mhm.
And you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that goes into it. And if you're, yeah, if the kids are playing, and I think it's also knowing what to do, right? So
Yes.
I did a year-long study with some teachers in Pittsburgh, and these were public school, right? Kindergarten, first, second grade teachers who were doing this play lab project where they were letting, free play with loose parts every day in the
Mhm.
classroom. And so I was coming in to see what the role of the teacher was, because I realized that I've been preparing teachers for 20 years in early childhood, and I talked about play being important, but now I'm asking you to lead with play. And so what does that mean that what are you supposed to be doing? Because you're not
Mm.
doing all the other things that I was teaching you to do if you're leading
Yes.
with play. So I would, so I come in for like my first observation, and these teachers, so three teachers, one had 30 years experience in that school, lived in there, right? And the other teacher had 25 years experience in that
Wow.
school. The third teacher had less experience. She was newer to the school, but she still had about 12 years of experience, but she had less capital, like in terms of being able to do whatever she wants that the other
Hmm.
two had.
Yeah.
And so I come in my first observation, and so the teacher looks at me and he goes, "So what am I supposed to do during play lab?" And I'm like, "Well, that's what I'm here to figure out. What do you do during play lab, and what do you want to do during play lab?" And he was like, "I don't know. They asked me to play with them. Should I play with them?" And I'm like, "Do you want to play with them?" So they were really observing me the first day that I was there to see what I was going to do, and I was
Yeah.
videoing and recording and doing stuff, and I did stop and put the camera down when I felt like the kids were going to hurt themselves, but I didn't stop the play. I just kind of held the two desks together so that they didn't fall through the middle. And I'm just standing there holding it, and they're looking at me, and I'm like, keep going. I'm just gonna, I don't,
Yep.
the desks were sliding apart, and I was like, one foot goes through the desk, and you bump your head, and then this play is over. I can't, so just
Yeah.
kind of holding it
Yeah.
together. But I think understanding the role, like what should teachers do? And I think you describe what some of the teachers did really well, right? How they observed, and then how they went back and they introduced like the circular, right? They were like, oh, what else
Yeah.
roles. And so what else can we add? And adding those things to the environment to then see if this child
Mhm.
is then pulled into that, right? And so
Mhm.
those are the things. And these teachers did all of this by the end of that year, mind you. They were
Yeah.
noticing things. They did step back. They said, we're not going to play. Like, we're not, they're going to not be like go for every play invitation because they wanted to observe and they started to observe. And when I came for other visits, they were telling me about all the things they were seeing that they, again, a 30-year veteran teacher telling me he's never seen a group of community like this. And it's got to
Um,
be play lab because that's the only thing that was new. And he
yeah.
was just floored by how close they were, how like strong they were, the community, how much they supported each other. And then,
Yeah.
another teacher, she saw all of the mathematical free mathematical stuff that where kids were behind, she saw it in play. So she's like, how
Mhm.
do I get this mathematical thinking that they do in play into the classroom? Because they're doing it. They're doing it in play.
Uh-huh.
They're thinking in mathematical terms and right, but in the classroom they're looking at her like blank stares when she's trying to teach
Yeah.
them. So she had to find ways to bring that
Huh.
in. So I think that
Yeah.
they're just like teachers' role shifts and it evolves, and it's super important to this work as well.
Well, and I think there's a valid feeling for some of, okay, but what do I do with all my good ideas then and all my
Mm,
expertise? And
yeah,
and
yeah,
you just find different ways to contribute with your
yeah,
expertise than
yeah.
being the one in charge of everything.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the teacher said she still set up these like activities during play
Uh-huh.
lab, but she didn't
Yeah.
force the kids to do them. They
Yeah.
were just there. But
Yeah.
there were activities she always did every year, and and she said most of them will do it at some point if I just leave it out there. They'll like
Yeah.
mosey on at some point and say, "Hey, can I do this? I haven't done one yet." And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, cool, cool, cool," and they'll do it. So her activities were still happening. She just
Yeah.
wasn't forcing everyone at the same time to kind of do it. And I thought that was a really key to like taking a shift in the teacher's role, like supporting when you can, but also just yeah, but just letting it unfold, right? And
Mhm.
then but really observing it. I think the key difference is that teachers observe and document and see what's happening and then make plans and reflection based on that. Now, reflection was part of Play Lab, so that's a great way to then bring in all your teacher stuff, like
Yeah.
reflect, through what was happening, what was going on and stuff. But it's not always a part, but it's that can happen as well too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, your book includes, okay, we talked about the one chapter dedicated to each schema. You've already named them, but tell us a little bit more about what some of these schemas mean. I
Yeah.
think most people get them, but anything that you'd want to share
Yeah.
with people briefly about the
Well,
schemas.
yeah. So, yeah, the book is, it's got like an intro and a schema chapter, and but then the last or the middle chapters, each one is dedicated to one of the schemas, and I tell a couple schema stories, and then kind of break it down by what the benefit might be in different developmental areas. But so, transforming is changing something about what you're playing with, transforming materials, or some you talked about children yelling really loud and not getting it. Sometimes they're transforming their voices.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's really just exploring the way that mixing things together or changing properties about of something that you're working with can kind of feed your curiosity. Trajectory is one that gets a little tricky because in trajectory they're experimenting with how things move through space, and sometimes that's their bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes maybe that's a block you wish they hadn't experimented with.
Yep.
But essentially they're trying to figure out like how do things move vertically, horizontally around things. Like they're figuring out trajectory, or in the trajectory schema. The transporting schema is just what it sounds like. They kind of carry things around, move things around. We've probably all worked with a child who just like picks things up and takes them to the other side of the room, but doesn't do anything with it over there, or wants to have things in their pockets all the time and maybe gets labeled as sneaky when
I
she
love that
forgets.
because I remember thinking kids like, empty your pocket, child. Why are you taking all the things? And now I'm like, they were just transporting. They
Yes,
weren't really
yeah.
trying to steal from you,
And you
but
know what?
literally their pockets were overloaded. And I was like, you don't leave this room until I see what's in
Yes.
them pockets, kid.
Yeah. But I was just talking to someone about this, and I'll get to the rest of the schemas, but I was just
Mm,
talking to someone because there's this kind of a trend in the last couple of years I've noticed of people on social teachers on social media sharing what comes home in their pockets, like the weird things that end up
Yes.
coming home in a teacher's pocket, and we're like celebrating that. But the little girl who forgets to take the car out of her pocket and goes home is like sneaky.
Sneaky. Yeah, exactly. Like she didn't remember that thing was in there, okay? Not at all.
Yeah. So, and then there's rotation and circularity where you just might find them um, moving things in circles or trying to rotate things, or
Hmm.
in their art or their writing, you might see lots of arcs and curved lines. Is there a difference between an arc
Yeah.
and a curved line? Probably.
I don't know, but I thought it was good because you never know. Like
Right.
someone might ask, "Is that an arc or is it it's both?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
include it
Both.
in rotation and circularity, whether you
Yeah.
think it's an arc or a curved line.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's enclosing and enveloping, which is kind of putting their bodies in enclosed spaces or creating enclosures in their play or covering things completely. So, maybe it's Lola who always uses the blocks to make fences to put the animals inside, and she's enclosing in that way. Or maybe it's Freddie who, every time he's at the easel, completely covers the whole, like does paints around the outside of the paper and then fills it all in, and that's all
Mm,
he does at the easel. Or building forts, things like
hmm.
that,
Hmm.
crawling under tables.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's connecting and disconnecting, which again is really pretty much what it sounds like.
Hmm.
So sometimes that's tape and string and glue, but sometimes it's knocking a block tower down because
Hmm.
we can get data
Disconnect.
from the
Yeah.
disconnecting as much as we
Hmm.
can from the connecting and building. Positioning and ordering is a lot of classifying by characteristic or literally just like lining things up, which sometimes freaks us out when kids start to line their toys up.
Hmm.
Um, uh, what else is in positioning and ordering? This could be a kid who always wants to be at the front of the line,
Yes.
or always wants to be right in front of the book instead of in the
Mm.
space that you've arranged around the book,
Hmm.
or just always wants to be by you. That could be
I had that
positioning and
child.
ordering.
Yeah.
And then I think the last one, I think that's all about orientation and perspective, which is in when the ways they play or the ways they explore give them a different view of the space or a material or their body. They want their bodies to be in different orientations, hanging upside down or
Mm.
leaning back too far in the chair or laying down on their side instead of sitting up to look at things. Um, so sometimes it's their body that's doing
Hmm.
the schema, and sometimes it's some sort
The
of
materials.
material.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that. I remember, like, I think about positioning. I always share this story about working in a preschool when I was in Indiana because I was a Hoosier for 5 years. And I was like, at the end of the day, I was kind of like the floater. So we had mixed age, like kids were
Yeah.
going down, down. So I didn't have like all the same kids and they would leave in the middle, but someone would stay. And so I was remember trying to figure out what to do and, read to them. And I
Mhm.
wanted to read a longer book, right? These were 4 year olds, and I wanted to read The Boxcar Children, the first book. I never read
Oh,
the whole series, but I loved the first book a lot.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they were like, "You can't read a chapter book. They're not going to sit still for that." I'm like, "Well, I don't need them to sit still." Like, so first thing I said was like, "Get comfortable," and they were like, "What?" I'm like, "Get into a space that you want to be, and I'm going to read a chapter a day. We're going to see what happens,
Mhm.
right?" And they were never allowed to do that. And there was a lot of positioning. Like one girl kind of went up to the thing, the loft, and like hung down upside down and like listened to the story
Oh,
there.
wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, what? But so I'm reading, every day, and I can't tell if they're really like, yes, kids are really. One time, I think one girl, her dad showed up, and she looked at him and said, "No, the chapter's over."
Amazing.
Refused to leave, right? And he was like, that's never happened before. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, letting kids have control over positioning and ordering that perspective really helped. And we got through the book and they really enjoyed it. And it's an old book too. And so you really don't think they're going to get into it. But yeah, that's one of the things that I really being comfortable when you're being read a story and being
Exactly.
able to move your body. And you never know. It didn't look comfortable to me, some of the positions they were in.
Yeah.
But for some, that's how they want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that can be really helpful about looking at watching children through a lens of schema play, because some of the stuff kids do is just weird. Like it just
Yeah.
looks weird. And if we think something's weird, then it's not too far of a jump to say, well, it's also probably meaningless then. Or
Mm.
if I can't understand why they would possibly do that,
Yeah.
then it's hard for me to make space for them to do that.
Yeah.
And so having this lens of saying, oh no, wait, this could just be
Hmm.
the way of moving through the world that makes the most sense to them. And then it shows up in their play and it shows up in the way they use materials and the things that
Yeah.
grab their attention or keep them, help them be focused and feel.
Yeah, and I think that just that freedom to try it out and to see
Yes.
if their body likes that's super important, right?
Yeah.
Because when you don't have any agency over anything, then the learning feels not good, right?
Yeah.
But when you're allowed to like try something new and like, no one say, no, don't do that. Like you got to figure out for yourself that doesn't work, buddy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
physically it doesn't work. And you
Yeah.
get to discover that for yourself without
Yeah.
someone telling you, is really powerful for young
Yeah.
children. Someone put in the comments, so when their backpack comes into the classroom full of items from home, that's transporting
It
question
could
mark.
be,
It
yes.
could be, right? It really depending. Is there an age limit on these schemas for
Well,
play? Like I know we talk about preschool, but now I'm wondering about a fourth grader who's just bringing in stuff.
listen, I get the question all the time about whether this carries into adulthood too. And I
Yeah.
don't, I haven't found any research that's like a kid who's really into rotation as a child is really going to be into rotation as an adult. But I can tell you, I did a lot of transporting as a kid, and I have a fine collection of bags.
I do too. I have a lot of bags. I wonder if that's a
There
thing.
is
I
very
feel like
little
I'm
that
a
tempts me
positioning
like a
and
new bag.
ordering when I eat, like when I eat with
Oh,
three things on my plate, like
mhm.
when I finish it, they are finished.
Yeah,
Like there's one last piece of each thing. Like I'm
yeah,
just very like, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I
yeah,
notice that that last plate will be meat, potato, veggie,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
kind of arrange it that
I
way, and I
mean,
have this kind of like, yeah,
I love it. As adults, we don't need to explore the world in the same way that children are, and
yeah.
we've moved into like that product stage, but they're
Hmm.
still in the process. So it wouldn't be as important to us to have a specific schema to use to move through the world, but that doesn't mean that we don't still enjoy that,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
tendency or
And do
something.
you think all children experience all schemas, or do you think
Um,
some kids go into some and whatever? So it's not like
yeah.
every child has to do this checklist. You hit all 10 schemas, you're developing. No, right? It's
Yes,
not like
thank you
that.
for asking that because yeah, it's not like, well, he's 4 and I haven't seen him transform yet, or he's
Yeah,
4 and
yeah.
I haven't seen him go through his rotation and circularity schema yet. No, I mean, I think, and you can see this in the stories in the book. Some of them are just kind of one-offs that I noticed a child doing this kind of
Hmm.
schema
Hmm.
play. But then there's kids like Freddie, who I think is George in the book, and
Hmm.
oh, I can't remember the pseudonym for the little boy with the rotation and circularity. But like,
Oh, I just looked at that one, but go ahead. I'll see if I can find it.
yeah, because he definitely uh everybody hold.
Elijah.
Elijah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so like Elijah, rotation and circularity was how he did everything. And
Yeah.
it started
Okay.
with him just really wanting this one truck all the time. And he's the one that you were kind of referring to earlier, I think, where his parents were kind of
Yes.
worried
Hmm.
that he only wanted to play with trucks. And so we moved. I just tried to add things that rotated or were circular to all the areas in the room. And he still really preferred that truck, but he did branch out and we saw him doing rotation and circulation all around more than he
Okay.
ever had before. And Freddie, who is George in the book, was really
Hi.
enclosing and enveloping. That
Okay.
he did that in every space he was all day long.
Mm,
But then other children, you just kind of notice in the moment, or they might have
yeah.
a week where they're really into one kind of schema.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay because I think you said his name was Bert in the book, but I think you gave the one who
Eddie.
carried the ball. You said it was 4 days or something, and then he stopped, right? So I
Yeah,
think that's another thing. It doesn't have to go on. It's for some kids, like it might last for 6 months, but for some kids, it might last for a few days or a few hours. We never know, right? We just don't
yeah,
know how long the schema is going to last until they
yeah.
move on to something else or it's no longer exciting, right? I think, and we notice that. Like I used to share this project video that these kids did on the Titanic at a preschool class. It was a great
Wow.
VHS back in the
Neat.
day when we had VHS players, and then I
Oh
kind of
yeah.
stopped showing it because I only had it on VHS. But they noticed that it went from ice and icebergs to play to jumping off a tall thing. So that's how they kind
Oh.
of saw the project had ended, right? They weren't so much obsessed with that anymore, and like they were moving on to something else. And so
Mhm.
I think you'll see the same things in the schema play,
Yeah.
right? Great. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So lots of good stories in the book, at least a couple. I think there's like two stories for each one, and then
Yeah.
going through all the different ways that they were developing in different area, developmental areas, and also academically pre-academic skills that were happening as well. So it's a really great if you're not sure, like, and I love at the end you said use these stories. Like I'm gonna be telling Bert's story, like, this kid's carrying around how big I figure it was a big bag of kickballs. Like
It
it
was
wasn't
as
like a
big as
little
he
bag.
was.
Is it big? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
He threw it over his shoulder and he's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
carrying big bag. And I was cracking
Big
up like,
enough
wait a
that
minute, he
if
didn't
this,
play with the balls.
no,
He didn't he just wanted to
no, just
carry
hauled him
and
around.
transport the balls all
Yeah.
around. I love that part
It
because
was
it's
big
like
enough. It was a big enough bag of balls that if he tried to fit through a space that was too small, the whole thing would bounce
the whole
back.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's just great. And I guess though, most people think, what if a kid wanted to play with a ball? And I'm like, I'm sure they would have asked him for one. And
Yeah.
I don't
We
know,
would have,
maybe he would have given them, right? We would have figured that
yeah.
out. But that wasn't even it. It wasn't like he was, some people say, oh, you're hogging the balls.
Yeah.
What if somebody else wants to play with a ball, Bert? No, that's not it either.
Yeah.
He just grabbed them all and lugged
Yep.
them around the space and enjoyed doing that for
Yeah.
days. And I mean, the strength of his body to like carry that, I think
Yeah.
is really that's what he was to me, that's what was
Yeah.
important was that he could do it, right?
For
And he
sure.
could do it in these different spaces. Yeah.
And it's easier to assign or assume positive intent if we're looking at it in
Yes.
that way
Yes.
than because otherwise we might jump to those, some more
Yeah.
familiar scripts of, oh, he's
Yeah.
hogging the balls
He's
or,
hogging the balls or it doesn't have any value, right? I remember
yeah.
my niece, I was home for Thanksgiving this year, my great niece, sorry, my niece's daughter. And no one listens to me because they're like, whatever, nerd. I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, she's transporting. And they're like, she's just mindlessly playing. I'm like, it's not mindless. She took everything, put it in this bag, moved it over here, took it out, went back. I mean, it's transporting. And they were like, yeah, whatever. And I'm just like thinking, right? So people think it's just okay, it's just play. She's doing it. She's
Yeah.
not bothering anyone. But I want them to see like, no, it's actually really, it's like a thing that she's doing, which is important for her
Mhm.
to like develop other orientation. They're like, all right, stop with all your nerd talk. And I'm like, fine.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you provide so many stories about schema play theory in action, and we shared a few. But is there one or two favorites that we haven't shared that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I have one that's a favorite because of what it taught me, and one
Okay.
that's a favorite just because it was fun to see it unfold. But
Okay.
so Millie was a 3-year-old girl who was suddenly like always in pretend play, always in the house area,
Hmm.
usually arguing with somebody on the phone about the baby. But one day she just started playing with the wooden train set. Um, and I thought that was really strange because I'd never seen her do that before. And so I was like, oh, great. I'm going to bring in train books and I'm going to talk to her about trains. And
Hmm.
I'm going to use this to really, build my relationship with Millie. And she would just look at me with this blank, like, just get out of my space. And she wasn't interested in train books. She didn't want to talk to
Mm,
me about trains, but she continued to choose that for several mornings. And then I thought, oh, wait, what if it's just about connecting and disconnecting? Because
mm,
she was building the trains, but she wasn't like driving the trains around or
mm,
coming up with any kind of stories about what the train was doing. She was literally just building out the track and then connecting the train cars with the magnets and just doing that over and over. So that taught me about making assumptions, or how
yeah,
I
sure.
can use this definitely to be sort of like a different way of doing emergent curriculum or a different way of wondering about how to extend or support what I was already
Hmm.
seeing. But then I have a story about Warren, was also 3 when I was observing in his classroom, and it was very apparent that he was the kid whose name is always called because every kid in that space called him his full 3 names in every conversation. And I was sitting and just observing, and he started to try and crawl. It was a typical early childhood catalog shelf, um, and divided into smaller, boxes within that shelving unit.
Hmm.
And he was trying to get his body into the bottom left box of that shelving unit. And
Mm,
it was maybe 18 inches wide, maybe about that high. And I know that he would have been stopped if I had not been observing him,
hmm.
like someone would have told him to get out of the shelf or something. But he worked so hard. He tried head first and then pulling his legs in and he tried going feet first and then putting his, and tried butt first. He was trying it all. And eventually he was like drawing a crowd of well-wishers and suggesters, other children, giving him like ideas for how
Put
to
your
say
hand
it.
there.
Yes. And he's looking at me like, are you going to stop this? Are you really letting me do this? And it was really amazing. And it was really, just a fun, weird thing that he wanted to do. But so one of the things I had to do when I chose stories for the book was then be like, are you really going to be able to get science, math, literacy, all those things out of this?
And you did.
And so I started reading, and I looked at the Indiana, because I'm in Indiana, the Indiana kindergarten standards for science.
Hmm.
And it said one of the standards was by the end of kindergarten, he should be able to ask questions, make observations, and gather information about a situation people want to change, to define a simple problem that can be solved through the development of a new or improved object or tool. And I thought, I'm seeing him do all of that with his body right now.
Yeah.
So by
Yeah.
kindergarten, maybe he needs to be able to say it, but he's doing all of those things. His body was the tool. The problem was my body's not in that space.
Yep.
He's doing all kinds of experimenting, some of his idea, hypothesizing, and it doesn't work, and he has to regroup and try it again. Like it was just a really rich scientific moment for him.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just love the story. And he also just is a stinker pot and looked through and through like a stinker pot. He had the best little
Yeah.
mischievous face.
I love it. And
Um,
I love the like checking, like, are you gonna stop me? Like we heard about that when I did an Angie Play fellowship and one of our colleagues got the material that her site, I think she was, I
yeah.
forgot what country she was in, somewhere in Eastern Europe. And we were in a meeting and she was saying, like, yeah, like the kids were building and they kept looking at us, like waiting for us to say that's too high, stop.
Uh,
And we didn't. And they just kept being shocked. And they're like, okay, keep going then. I guess no one's gonna stop us. And they keep looking back, right? And so that idea that kids need permission
yep.
sometimes because they feel like, right? And you gave him that permission to really like, no, this is cool, buddy. Good luck. Like,
Yeah.
good luck
Yeah.
trying to figure this out. And
And
and maybe he
it
can't
also
fit in
just
there, but
felt subversive for me because I know he was only allowed to do that because I was observing, and I
yeah,
was okay with
yeah,
it. So they were going to let it
yeah.
go. So I felt like he and I were having a
Yeah, it
little
was good. Yeah, having a little
moment of
moment. Like, I'm gonna
anarchy.
let you do this. I love that. I love that. Um, so I want to end by talking about strengthening early childhood teachers' professional expertise, right? So that
Mm,
comes up. You told a story about a teacher who dismisses the value and trajectory schema, like you kind of explained it. And she's like, yeah, no, 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 that's not what they're saying.
yeah.
But then the same teacher that laments about not being seen as a real teacher. And
Yeah.
to me, that just struck me because I'm like, you're not valuing their play experiences, but you're also complaining that people don't value the work
Yeah.
that you're doing. And I think there's a connection there, right?
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how can using schema play theory to advocate for play help these teachers strengthen their professional expertise,
Mm,
right? Because I feel like that was a
yeah.
missed opportunity for her to
Yeah.
connect those two.
I think we stopped learning in the name of being a teacher a lot.
Speak on it. Oh my God, I love that. That's so important.
Because I mean, if we're I think sometimes we get caught up in performing teachery kinds of things, and
Yeah.
it's just the script that's been there for us. And I think we've done a lot of things as a profession, early childhood education, specifically birth to five program folks, not individuals, but systemically trying to gain respect by looking more like school and using the language of elementary schools and pushing some of the content of elementary school down into our early childhood programs in the hope that we will then be seen. I don't know what world they're living in where elementary schools are showered with respect either, but
Right?
we feel like if we can bring that into our work, then we're going to magically suddenly be respected and well paid. Um, and so I think it comes from a really meaningful place. But um, instead of saying, here's how I'm an expert, here's how I'm a professional, I understand that children have a drive to play. I understand that children learn from their play, that their brain develops from their play, that their bodies benefit from their play, and their mental health is protected by their play. Um, and so here's how I'm going to set the space up so they can do all those things. Here's the stuff I'm going to have in the room so they can do those things. That's how we are experts. That's how we are being professional, is by
Hmm.
using developmentally informed and responsive practices, instead of insisting that we try to just be like school, like elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And schema helps with that, with helps me with that anyway, because it gives me some language to use when I'm talking to other folks about it. It gives me like I'm not going to put it on a lesson plan form necessarily. I'm not going to say, well, 9:30 is transporting time. Um, but when I do have to, if I do have to plan something that's adult led, and I know I've got kids who are into these three schemas, I can think, what do I add to this experience that gives them an opportunity to participate in a way that I've seen is meaningful to them, and maybe then they're more
Yeah.
engaged and more willing to do.
Yeah.
And I think it also, if you have to turn it into a checklist, which we love to do,
Hmm.
then is it a looking around your room every Monday or your home every Monday morning with your checklist and saying what's in here that they can transport? Okay. What's in here that they can rotate,
Hmm.
and using all of that together is teaching,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's focused not on my performance, but on how children learn and
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
important for them to learn in these years, and adjusting my practices to meet that. And so I'm still a professional. I still am a teacher. It just is a
Yeah.
different way of being those things.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it centers the child as where your expertise comes from, because
Yes,
knowing
that's
the child is
yes.
so important.
The
And
child
so
is the
when
evidence, so
the
it's
child is the
evidence-based.
evidence, right? Yeah, it's evidence-based. The child is the evidence, right? Like, and so when you know the child, when you're seeing them and observing them, like, yeah, and you were wrong about the girl with the trains. It wasn't about the book, but you jumped in, you knew what to do when you thought, oh, she's in the trains. You sprang into teacher mode and were ready, right? You just made the
Mhm.
wrong conclusion. She
Yeah,
wasn't about the trains. They were just a symbol of what she was
yeah,
trying to do, right?
yeah.
And so teachers can do that, right? And sometimes you're going to be right. You're like the guy the circular. I think you put. I love that idea. I don't remember doing that. Putting the cars in the paint
Yeah.
and so that the wheels are you're painting with the
Yeah.
trucks, right? Or you mentioned other things like marble, like all of these different things that could go into the paint, right? So it's not
Mhm.
even just like, yeah, he's in the circular, but how can you bring circulars to other spaces,
Yeah.
right? We know like the water wheels that go around
Yep.
would be
They were in
something,
there.
but I
Yep.
didn't think about putting balls and stuff in the paint, right? And like, but that's great. That's brilliant because now it's painting and it's the circulatory rotation schema, right? That's coming
Yeah.
through. So I
And
love it.
it's
And
sort
I
of
think,
professional
yeah,
development for us too, then, because
yes, yes,
we have to keep learning in a different way than other than going to the same old
yeah.
thing, and look, we every day have opportunities to teach ourselves something new based on what the children show that they're
Yeah,
doing.
and we should want to keep teaching and learning. Like that's what I loved about teaching, even at the college level, is how much I learned from my students every semester and how much
Mhm.
like I was. But I think you're right. A lot of us feel like, nope, we're the experts. We're not learning anything. You can't learn from a 4-year. Oh my God, I learned so much stuff from little kids all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool, because it's great. You just don't realize. So
Yeah.
I love that. All right, we have a couple questions here. I will start first. Lisa Jones, my namesake here, has asked. How early can we start to see schema, and do some schemas come before others? While she's thinking about that, if you have another question and it's not in the chat, go ahead and there's a hand up feature under raise hand. Click on that, and then I'll see your hand pop up and I'll call on you. Otherwise, I'm just going by the questions in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I think another reason schema play is really interesting is because it's so good for toddler teachers to have as a framework, because all
Hmm.
that filling and dumping
Yes,
can be
exactly.
re-examined. So I
Hmm.
definitely think that toddlers are into all the schemas. But it's a good question, and it makes me now, because I haven't been in any kind of meaningful length of time with infants since I
Mm.
started thinking a lot about schema. So I don't know if you really maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't thought about it. You're
But
right. I haven't seen.
yeah.
I mean, I think you do because you notice how the dropping of the toy. So my kid's older sister has a baby,
Wow.
and he's 6 months now, and I think I was like, is this a schema? I meant to go back to the Play Empowered
Yeah.
chat on WhatsApp and be like, is that a schema when the infants are constantly driving? I don't know if he's just like I'm thinking it's early Piaget, right? The movements and the
Sure.
connecting sensory motor, but then it's like I think once as he gets older and this expectation is like you give it back to me and I do it
Yeah.
again. I don't
But
know. It feels like a
I
schema.
think I think that that could be a connecting schema. Right. It's
Ah, yes,
definitely
yes.
trajectory, but if I'm picking it up and giving it back to you and then you're dropping
You're
it
just
again,
connecting it from
I
my
think
hand and back
it's
to
a
the,
physical
yeah.
connecting and it's a social connecting
It's the social
schema. So
connecting.
I
Yeah,
think we could
yeah.
definitely see it in infants. I just haven't looked at that. And the work that Chris Athey did was 2 to 6 year olds.
Two
So
to six.
it wasn't
Okay.
really part of hers either, but I'm not here to say
No,
babies are
I think
too
you could
little to show
see
you.
babies, infants doing some type of schema, especially when they start toddling. Like when he starts moving, I mean, I can definitely see him, but again, I think people be like, it's not intentional at that age. It's not intentional at almost at any age, but they're doing it,
Right.
right? It is intentional. It's like, it's just not in the way we think, right? But
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I'm not going to say that a baby dropping their spoon is literally thinking, I'm going to slip a little trajectory in here to get Tanisha back to me. I
Yeah,
like
and
this
I don't think a
connection we've got
4-year-old is like,
going.
I'm going to envelop myself into this space either, right? And so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we want to hear them say that stuff and they
Yes.
don't.
Yeah.
So we are not sure. But for you infant and toddler teachers out there, let us know. Like we'd love to hear it if
Sure.
you
Yes.
recognize some of these schemas in your infant toddlers. That would be great. Amy Weiss, I hope I said that correctly, has a question. She says, besides your book, Heather, is there a resource 2 to 3-year-old teachers can use to provide activities that satisfy the schemas? Or is that your next book? Oh, she's already asking for your next book. I
I
love
wish
it.
I
I
knew.
love
I wish I
it.
had a next book idea. I miss being in the process of writing. There is one of my favorite resources, and I know you could probably Google this, but it's Michelle Thornhill. She's in Canada, and she has a resource she's put together of loose parts by the schemas. Like for trajectory, she has a whole list of loose parts that you could have in your space that are conducive to trajectory. Um, but I don't have an easy link. But that's how I usually
Okay, I'm
find it.
finding it. I think I found it.
I
It's like
usually just Google her.
it's just a PDF. It's just a
Yeah,
PDF popped up. Let me
yeah,
see. I'll put the link in the chat. Hopefully you guys can open it. But I
yeah,
just Googled Michelle Thorne and
yeah.
what you said, loose part schema, and that popped
Yeah.
up
Okay,
first.
good. And
Yeah.
there's another Kathy Brody, Brodie, and Kathy with a K has a good PDF too that has more information and then materials that would support each schema. But um, yeah, I think it's more about thinking about what kinds of stuff you have around,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and less about actually like today I'm gonna do schema activities.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want you to feel like you have to, just the materials, right?
Yeah.
How you might let them take that schema. And I think one of the things you mentioned, how important that is, the girl who was transporting the water and the ice, and she went to get the
Yeah.
spoon and came over. So if you limit children's ability to go do that, to go get materials from other
Mhm.
spaces, then it's those kind of things, right? Like
Yeah.
thinking around the environment and say, yes,
Yeah.
does every space have something for rotation, for
Mhm.
transporting? Can I bring in more bags? With the circular, you added a stroller to the dramatic play. And this kid who only played with a truck is now in dramatic play because he gets to push the stroller, right? And so it's that kind of thinking. It's like, where can I add things, right? But not like, oh, let me create this circular activity and then it's a bust because the kids don't all want to be doing circular
Yeah.
activities, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
adding to the environment and thinking about it, are there spaces everywhere for these different schemas? Like that
Mhm.
to me is like the really the intentional planning part of it, which I
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Awesome. Yes, it was a great question. The last one is just more of a comment. As someone who loves working with children under 3, I really appreciate you highlighting the importance of embracing the wonderfully weird things they do. So natural and important to observe and support. And yeah, that
Listen,
was
infants
also
and
from Lisa.
toddlers have my heart. I love every
No,
age group I
I
work
know.
with, but if I had my druthers and my millions, I would have a program
Yeah.
that's just infants and toddlers as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, I love when the little boy comes to visit, but he's in that phase where it's stranger danger for me. It's funny
Oh,
because my daughter, it's like he loves her. They all get a kick out of it because as soon as I hold him, he just goes, "Ah," and I just like give him back, and I was
so
like,
embarrassing when you're the
can't wait. I
child
know, but
development
I
expert.
can't wait till you're out of this phase, buddy, and I'm like your favorite person because like all I want to do is sit and play with you because I love just just how you're doing that stuff, like and how you're scooting around and moving. So it's coming. I know it's coming. He'll get over that stranger danger, but it's funny to everyone else because they're just like, oh, they don't like you. And I'm like, no, he does not like me. He just
Tell him
doesn't
about the
know
schemas,
me.
Denisha. Tell him
Yes,
about
I'm
the
going to tell them at
schemas.
the schema. They don't want to hear it, but I'm going to tell them. Well, thank you so much, Heather, and thank you all for joining us. Okay, wait, one more. What was the name of the person from you just shared the link for? It wouldn't open, so I'd like to
Oh,
Google it.
it was Michelle
Sorry that
Thornton.
one didn't open. Michelle Thornhill. I'll put it in the chat. Michelle Thornhill. And actually, when I send out the recording, I'll include the document. Yeah. All right, but thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I hope you guys, I only had it on my Kindle, but I'm gonna show you the book here. Can you see it? No, because it's on my, oh wait, that's not it. The
I
cover,
got it.
what
I got
happened?
it. I
Oh, you
got
got
it.
it. Good. There it is. Show the
Um,
cover of the book,
Amy, are
please.
you
Thank
trying
you.
to ask a
Yes,
question?
Amy,
I
go
am.
ahead.
Is
And
that okay?
yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm just
Sure.
I'm kind of fangirling here because
Oh,
I discovered your podcast so long ago. I've been teaching, this is my 29th year at the same school, teaching pre-K and preschool. In January, I was asked to move into the toddler classroom, and your book has been like such a lifesaver. And I can say I use it because one child had foam blocks, and it was a foam tube that he had put the block on, and he was hurling it across the yard, which was phenomenal. But there were lots of other people there, other children. And I told him, I said, okay, let's grab a few blocks. I'm going to show you something. So I brought him to a part of the yard where there was no one. And I said, hurl that away. And he did
love
it
it.
for like 5 minutes. And the other teachers were like, what are you doing? Why are you moving the blocks from this area over? I'm like, because it's a schema and he needs to do it.
I
And,
love it. I love
and
it.
so I'm hopefully I'm going to get my director to get books for all of the faculty, and I want to do a book study, at least
Oh,
for our toddler group. We have 5 teachers in our toddler group.
yeah.
Um,
Well, if you do and you want me to drop in,
oh,
Yeah.
I'll
I
zoom
I
in.
Yeah, that
will
would be
reach out to
great
you.
to have
I
her
think
jump
it would
in. Yeah.
just
We
be
had
so
someone.
good.
Did you do that talk from one of our mini grant winners that wanted to do a book? Has that happened yet with you?
They're doing it this summer.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Love
Yeah.
it.
So
Love
I'll
it.
be
Yeah.
joining them
Yeah.
on the last week of their book study. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
I was just so happy to get to see you live because I listened to you
Oh,
and
that's so
your
nice, Amy.
roundtables, but like, oh, I get to see her live for free. Oh my gosh. So
Love it. Love it. Well,
thank you, and
thank you. Thank you.
thank you,
And I want to
DEY,
encourage
for
everyone else.
putting this
Someone did
on.
this at a session, and I thought it was great to come off mute and thank Heather for everything. Like it's a great little moment where you can, yeah, unmute, and then and then you hear all the congratulations, thank you, blah blah blah. Blah. It's really cool when it happens. We'll see if everyone comes off mute.
Oh, Mike
Okay.
Brown did that. I saw Mike Brown do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Takima did it when we did a session together, and it was great.
Okay.
Everyone came off,
It
and
was like
I see
really
the
moving.
emojis coming. But yeah, you just say thank. Everyone come off mute and say thank you. That's what you're supposed to say, and then everyone's
Thank
like,
you.
"Thank you, Heather." There we
Thank
go. Thank you,
you.
Heather.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Heather,
Oh my
and
gosh, it was so
Thank you
good.
so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Heather.
you're
thank you.
rock stars. You guys are awesome.
Oh, this was so fun.
Oh, last,
Now I can't hear you,
okay.
Denisha.
Oh,
Cutting in and out.
oh, okay. Well, Um, anyway, I'll send it to you guys in the email. Our next book talk is next week, Wednesday. The book is called Screen Aware Early Childhood, and I will
Oh,
share it with
good.
you. You're welcome to join us. It's all about really thinking about tech and screen. There it is, Screen Aware. And you just did them, you had them on the podcast. So that's
They were just
great.
on a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote the forward for that book. My name's
Yeah.
on the cover, so I love it. So we're having that talk next Wednesday, also at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we hope you'll join us, but you'll get the recording and you'll get a link for that one to register as well too, probably tomorrow. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you so much. Stop the
Have a
recording
good night,
there.
everyone.